Right, okay, this is my wife, this is Tracy, George's mum, and I wanted to ask her a few questions because nobody knows better what it's like to treat someone who's got type 1 than Trace. The reason for doing most of these videos and for doing everything is to raise awareness. We were talking earlier about the people who've got type 2, and well, we were talking more about the kind of campaign for type 1 and the fact that a lot of it comes across as very angry. So you get parents of sort of being in a bit of a rage that people don't know what it is, or grouping it in with type 2, but there is this sort of burning anger, lots of which I can understand because it's one of those it's so unjust, you know. It just like what happened for George, it comes out of the blue, but people not knowing what it is entirely forgivable, surely. I mean,
yeah, because we didn't know what type 1 was.
Well, tell everyone how much you knew.
Not very much, probably just the difference between type 1 and type 2, and I had one client that has type 2 diabetes that kept this little vial of sugar underneath the massage couch for if you had a hypo during a massage, and that's all I knew. Nothing really.
So, what's the difference?
The difference is type 1 is an autoimmune condition, so your body for some reason attacks itself and kills the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin. So it's a hormone, which means you can't break down food, you can't break it down from sugar into energy for your body to use. Type 2 is very different. It's, I can't even think of the words now. It's when your body is insulin resistant. So your body is producing insulin, but it needs to produce a lot more because it's become resistant for some reason to using it properly to break down food for energy. So it might be that your genetics are bad, which means you have to just produce more, or lifestyle dependent, that your body is breaking down and not working as effectively as it should.
Yeah. And I suppose people, I think, misunderstand the savage nature of type 1. If George doesn't get insulin, then he's dead, basically. If he's left untreated, even for a few hours, the consequences of that can be huge. So, what's the first question? What's the hardest thing to deal with George having type 1?
Him not having a carefree childhood, probably. I have to worry about some things. Have to worry about everything. You know, he can't just go and play in the park, you know, and run around and be crazy because we're concerned that, you know, it'll do things to his blood sugar, and we're going to need to give him more food to balance out the exercise. And obviously you want to encourage exercise and for him to be as fit as possible, but it just makes you worry, and you worry that your concern transfers into him, I suppose.
Probably shouldn't do that when you're feeling like this, but tell people, I've certainly written about it if people want to read more in depth, because I'm not going to pick on Tracy that much, it's hard to reflect on, but tell me a little bit about when he was diagnosed. What happened?
Well, it did come out of the blue completely, as you said. Obviously it's our first baby, and he was really young, and he was soaking through nappies, and you know, I asked my friend's opinion, and they said, oh, just change size up nappies and not be concerned. But then he had a couple of really projectile vomits, like exorcist type vomits, which made you go, oh god, something's really bad. And then he just woke up one morning not being able to breathe very well. I had this serious rasp on his chest and was really laboured breathing. And we didn't know any of the symptoms of type 1, not knowing anyone else that had it, even an adult. And obviously they're very clear, the symptoms of type 1. But I made a doctor's appointment because he was had laboured breathing. And the doctor basically called A&E, said we were going, and we went there. We waited there for ages. We were in there for hours and hours, and he was projectile vomiting and soaking through nappies and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden they took it really seriously. I can't remember the moment that they took it seriously, that he wasn't just there with a bug. I can't remember.
They couldn't get.
I couldn't get a line in.
Couldn't get a line into him because.
So they changed him to a different room so that they could try repeatedly to try and get the line in. But it was hours that they tried to get a line in because he was so dehydrated because of the excessive peeing and because his blood had turned to acid apparently because of him not producing any insulin. And yeah, they just really struggled. They they had to shave a bit of his hair to try and get a needle into his vein in his scalp. Can't remember what that vein's called. They ended up going into his neck and his groin successfully, but it was after hours and can't even remember how many attempts at cannulas. But the weirdest thing was that after all this had happened, that they sent us his baby grown in the post, covered in blood. Like, why would you want to keep that? Yeah. That was awful.
Yeah. Well, they did some things I've written about that after they shaved his head. It was looking particularly bleak at that time.
Oh, and then they did the interosseous cannulas. They drilled through his shin bones.
Yeah, well, they know about that. If they read about it, the nurse took me to one side and she gave me his hair in a little plastic tube. Yeah. Well, I showed you it probably a month later.
You still have it.
Yeah, I've still got it.
It was silly.
But I remember being really panicked because she gave it to me with sort of sad eyes, and she said, "I don't suppose you ever got to cut his hair," as in past tense. And so I hid it from you quite quickly. But anyway, we won't. The point of this is not to cry down a camera. It's written about, and you can read about on this site in the blog section. So he goes into intensive care.
Mm-hmm.
When he leaves intensive care, we start treating him with jabs. Talk a little bit about starting to treat him on our own. I mean, I think the big thing that I remember is it was a long process in the hospital, and we were so desperate to get out of there. And that's no reflection of extraordinary care. Again, I've reinforced written down. Extraordinary care, but being in hospital, you just start to go stir crazy. We had to take it in turns to sleep with him, and just having your family fractured like that in a time of extremis, really, when you just want to be as close to them as you could possibly be. And that's not just George, it's Tracy too, and I can certainly admit to feeling really vulnerable when she wasn't around. You know, it's a big deal. We're a team, as cliched as that sounds. That's the truth. And so you just wanted and wanting life to begin again, and because it stood still for such a long time. And so it's a long way of explaining that we're also desperate to take care of him, because for such a long time you're just standing there as a helpless bystander, and I, for one, hated that feeling. My son wants to take care of him.
But we also just realised that the quicker we learn, the quicker we'll get out. It's not like it's prison, but we wanted to be at home all together. Yeah. So the quicker we learn, the quicker we could be together. Yeah,
so we did a good job of looking capable. No, but obviously we're not going to blag that. We needed to know we were, but that happened we managed that bit as quickly as possible, even though we were in hospital for 2.5 weeks plus. So we're at home now, and he has 2 long-term injections, stuff called Levemir, which lasts 12-hour period and slow release in his body, and then another type of insulin called Humulin, which is fast-acting, which you would give to treat spikes in blood sugar that commonly happen when you have food. So what was the process like? We're on our own, and we start treating him with injections.
Well, it's just not. It's in the coffin.
That's
the thing we constantly live with, the bedroom monitor.
He's
even though he's 3.5.
He's 3.5, but we have to be able to hear his alarm on his pump, and we have to hear if anything's ever going wrong. So, just talk briefly a bit about what it started like treating someone.
Well, I only really remember giving the Levemir, the long-lasting injections. And I know that we had to pin his leg and inject him and hold it in there for 10 seconds to make sure that the insulin got in, which was awful, just because neither of us really wanted to obviously stick a needle in your baby that's 6 months old. But I was breastfeeding at the time as well, and obviously it's hard to quantify how many carbohydrates are in milk, and so he ended up not having very many of the fast-acting insulin shots. I think he had 1 a day, maybe. I can't really remember. But he's supposed to have 1 with each meal, and he was having food and breastfeed, so obviously he wasn't having it every time he ate or drank. But it was not a good time when we had to do them by ourselves. If I was out at work or Simon was out at work, you have to pin him so that you don't slip.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. All right. So everyone will know from watching a 24-hour video that he's now on this insulin pump, and one of the great struggles with George, the wonderful thing about the insulin pump is that it could deliver doses as small as 1/8 as much as the smallest dose from a needle. That makes sense. So
from the injection.
Yeah, from the injection needle. So, which was wonderful for George, who's so insulin sensitive. So then we could start getting better control. So I'm just going to turn his monitor down because this is just he talks a lot, and we know he's not going to go low right now. So having that better control, the things that Tracy was saying, that he didn't even get a bolus for food sometimes when he was little, was because we couldn't afford to. So insulin sensitive that a dose that large, which was the smallest one a needle could give,
which was half a unit,
meant that he was travelling towards having a hypo. Far too dangerous to have this baby who's on the verge of hypo the whole time. So we learned, we got better. George has this 3-month test, which is a blood test, which gives you an average of where his blood sugar's sat. And when we started with him, he was into the 12s, his average. Bear in mind, blood sugar should be between the numbers 4 and 6. What's the simplest
4 and
way?
7.
Or 7. Sorry. And so, it started in the 12s, and they would tell us how well we were doing, and I think we thought we were pushing ourselves as far as we could. So just tell people a little bit what it's like, I suppose. Just there's a countdown on when you give a blood test. You do the test, and then it counts down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before the number of what his blood sugar appears. I could say a little bit of what that feels like, but
you can try and guess as much as you want to about what his blood sugar would be. The colour of his blood, the viscosity, how thin or thick it is, depends on how high and how low he is, what his pallor's like, if he's grey or if he's got bags under his eyes. You can try and guess in that 5 seconds what the number will be, but sometimes it's quite a big surprise.
Yeah. So once he's below 4, he's between 3 and 4, you'll get this again from the